Right now, as you're watching this video, someone in Austin is signing a lease on a brand new apartment. In Dallas, a crane is adding another floor to a glass tower. In Houston, a new restaurant is taking reservations. Texas is booming. But 2 hours from those skylines, there are towns where the opposite is happening. Quietly. And with almost no one watching. 6 towns between Waco and College Station had everything Texas was supposed to need. Cotton, railroads, mineral springs, oil. And yet they are shrinking decade after decade. Not because they were unlucky, but because a system moved on without them, one decision at a time. Let's go find them. Calvert sits quietly on the Blackland prairie, its broad main street lined with brick storefronts that once buzzed with the sound of commerce. In the late 1860s, the Houston and Texas Central Railway arrived, and everything changed. Cotton poured in from the Brazos bottomlands, and by 1871, Calvert claimed the world's largest cotton gin, a mechanical marvel that could turn 32,000 bales a year into profit and promise. Merchants and bankers set up shop. The town incorporated in 1870, and for a while, it seemed there was nothing but growth ahead. But the system that built Calvert had other plans. In 1892, the boll weevil crept north from the Gulf Coast, and within 2 years, local reports recorded a 70% drop in cotton acreage. Farmers packed up, merchants followed, and the gin, once the engine of prosperity, shut its doors for good in 1938. The trains kept rolling through, but fewer people stayed to watch them pass. Today, Calvert's population hovers below 1,000. Yet on Main Street, a descendant of one of the old gin workers spends weekends scraping paint and fixing windows, determined to keep at least one block of the past alive. If a town can be undone by a single pest, what does it take to rebuild? And who gets to decide which places are worth saving? Kosse's fortunes rose and fell on decisions made far from its dusty streets. In 1870, the Gulf, Colorado, and Santa Fe Railway made Kosse its northern terminus, and for 8 months, the town thrived, with new hotels, saloons, and land offices filled with hopeful settlers. Then, the tracks pushed north to Groesbeck, and the boom vanished. A yellowed 1873 document in the local library captured the shift. It said that when it was the terminus, it was a thriving place, but now its glory has faded, and cattle constitute the bulk of shipments from here. The population dropped to around 200, and Main Street emptied out. In 1924, rumors of oil sparked another frenzy. Land changed hands, speculators poured in, and for a moment Kosse buzzed again. But the wells ran dry, and by 1927, only rusted rigs and faded signs remained. Fewer than 500 people live here now. The town archivists, whose family sold land in the oil rush, keeps those old papers. A record of fortunes shaped by distant choices. In Marlin, the future once bubbled up from underground. The story begins in 1889, when a drilling crew searching for drinking water struck a spring so hot and mineral-rich, it sent steam rising over the prairie. Word spread quickly. By 1892, bathhouses and grand hotels lined the streets, drawing visitors from across Texas and beyond. The Marlin Bath Hotel, a marvel with 120 rooms, stood at the center of it all. Baseball teams, politicians, and families, seeking cures for everything from arthritis to exhaustion, flocked to these healing waters. At its peak, Marlin welcomed 15,000 guests a year, a staggering number for a town whose population rarely topped 5,400. But medical science does not stand still. In 1915, the state opened a tuberculosis sanatorium, employing more than 100 locals. For decades, the town's economy rested on the promise of water and wellness. Then, in 1951, the sanatorium closed. New antibiotics had made mineral springs and long-term rest obsolete. 120 jobs vanished overnight. The old Hilton Hotel's tunnels, once filled with steam and laughter, fell silent. Today, a retired nurse who once worked those wards remembers the faces and stories, the sense of purpose that once animated every shift. She wonders, as many here do, how progress can heal some wounds while leaving others behind. When a single policy change can erase an entire way of life, who decides what a town is worth? Mart, Texas once thrived at the crossroads of rail and commerce, its main street anchored by the steady rhythm of passing trains and the promise of connection to the outside world. In the early 1920s, the town reached its commercial peak. 34 businesses crowded the downtown district, from the grain elevator and banks to the hardware store and a movie theater that lit up Saturday nights. For decades, the Missouri Pacific Railroad was more than just a line on a map. It was Mart's lifeline, bringing people and goods in and out, tying local fortunes to distant markets. But in 1938, the railroad's parent company filed with the Interstate Commerce Commission to end passenger service through Mart, citing low ridership and shifting priorities. The train slowed, then stopped. By the mid-1960s, the Interstate Commerce Commission approved the abandonment of the Mart-Batesville spur, and the tracks themselves were pulled up, leaving only overgrown beds where steel once ran. Businesses closed one after another. The grain elevator in 1965, the hardware store in 1967, the movie theater repurposed for storage by the end of the decade. Today, empty storefronts and silent silos mark the spot where opportunity once gathered. Aaron Cole, a city planner, walks the old rail corridor and sketches out ideas for reuse, but he knows the system that left Mart behind never asked for the town's consent. When a single corporate petition can erase the foundation of a community, what choices remain for those determined to stay? In Bremond, the school is more than a place of learning. It's the economic heart of the town. Nearly half of all working adults here draw their paychecks from the school district, whether they are teachers, bus drivers, or staff. The Texas Education Agency's payroll reports put that number at 45%, a figure that shapes daily life as much as any grain truck rolling down Main Street. Over the past decade, census tables show Bremond has lost more than 6% of its residents. Most of those leaving are young families, drawn to jobs in Waco or Bremond College Station, leaving empty houses and quieter playgrounds behind. Superintendent Laura Mills sits at her desk, the budget spreadsheet open in front of her, and explains what this means. Every student who leaves takes state funding with them. Fewer students mean fewer jobs, tighter budgets, and a shrinking tax base. The school's payroll, $3.2 million last year, holds the town together, but it is a fragile lifeline. When so much depends on a single public institution, what happens if the numbers keep falling? And who decides how much risk a small town is allowed to carry? Groesbeck stands at the center of Robertson County, its courthouse square, a reminder of the civic pride that once drew families from miles around. For generations, the promise of county seat status offered a kind of insurance, jobs in the courthouse, steady business for lawyers and clerks, a sense that Groesbeck would always matter. But the world beyond the square kept moving. In 1952, a new freight corridor carved a faster route for trains that bypassed the town, and the steady hum of rail traffic faded to a memory. By the time the highways filled with commuters and delivery trucks, Groesbeck's Main Street was already quieter, its shops closing one by one as freight jobs disappeared. Today, nearly half the town's working adults climb into their cars each morning and drive to Hearn, Waco, or Bryan, chasing paychecks that no longer circulate locally. Census tables show a population drop of more than 16% since 2000. County Clerk James Parker keeps the public records up to date, but he sees the deeper numbers: fewer marriages, fewer births, more property transfers as families move away. The courthouse still opens its doors each day, but the town it anchors grows smaller. Its future shaped not by local votes, but by distant decisions and the silent logic of the commuter highway. Patterns take shape in silence as one town's story echoes another's. Every street, every faded sign, every empty storefront is a ledger of decisions made elsewhere. Rail lines drawn and erased, crops ruined by distant pests, state budgets recalculated, highways mapped for someone else's future. What ties Calvert, Kosse, Marlin, Mart, Bremond and Groesbeck together is not just loss, but the way a system moved on without them, one decision at a time. No single meeting or law set out to unravel these places. Instead, each town was left to weather a storm it never chose, shaped by forces it could not control. We see the result not in a single moment, but in the slow subtraction of people, jobs, and hope. The persistence of those who remain is not just endurance, but a quiet question. What do we owe to the places the boom forgot? Some things do remain, even as the numbers shrink. Across these towns, small groups of residents and planners look for ways to invest in what is left, not just mourn what is gone. State and federal grants for rural water systems, broadband, and historic preservation arrive in amounts that seem modest compared to the billions flowing into the city enterprise zones, yet they matter here. In Mart, an old rail corridor is being studied for new uses, from trails to small business incubators. Preservation advocates debate whether to restore Main Street's brick storefronts or adapt them for new trades. Each effort is a wager on the future, made without guarantees. For those who want to help, resources exist. Links to grant programs, local historical societies, and rural development guides. The question is not just what can be saved, but who will step forward to try. Every census, the map shifts. More Texans gather in the cities. Fewer voices remain to speak for towns like these. Yet policy, infrastructure, and ambition still ripple outward, reshaping places that never ask to be left behind. The question is never just who grows, it is who gets to belong.